Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking Arno for bringing me to Mexico. The last time I was here was 2011. I was in Guadalajara for the Pan American Games, where I discovered not only your thirst for sport, but your thirst for margaritas and the hangovers that they can bring after a hard day's work. What I'm going to talk to you today about is what the IPC did for London 2012. It's 2 years ago now, and some of the things we did now look quite dated, but at the time, we were very proud of what we did. So I'm going to start with a video, which will just give you a taster of Paralympic sport.
Jagger, not sagging. Spell it backwards, I'ma leave it at that. That ain't got nothing to do with rap. Get up. Just like that. 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 I know this is a shock. Screaming gangster 20 years later. Of course it does while consciousness faded. New generations believe in them fables. Gangsta boogie on 2 turntables. Thank you for letting us be ourselves. So don't mind me if I repeat myself. These simple rhymes be good for your health. To keep them drum rhymes on the shelf. Live love life like you just don't care. Never scared. Rain and noise is the moment they feared. Get up, still a beautiful idea.
That gives you an idea of what we were looking to deliver in London, and that was the fantastic advertising campaign from Channel 4. So who are the International Paralympic Committee? I'll be really honest with you, 5 years ago, I had my first interview with the IPC, and I said in the interview, when I got asked the question, who are the IPC and what do you know about us, I said, I know absolutely nothing. And I think that's quite a problem when it comes to a sporting global governing body. We're effectively the para-sport equivalent of the IOC. Apart from we're based in Bonn, Germany, as opposed to Lausanne. We organize the summer and winter Paralympic Games, but where we differ from the IOC is that we're also the International Federation for 10 parasports. So we are effectively the parasport equivalent of the IAAF, looking after athletics, swimming, powerlifting, shooting, alpine skiing, biathlon, cross-country skiing, ice sledge hockey, snowboard, and wheelchair dance. So not only do we organize those events, we also have to organize the World Championships and the regional championships for those para-sports. So our year is quite busy. You'd think when delivering all those events, we'd have a very large media team. There's just 6 of us doing all this work, and going into London 2012, there were just 4 of us. Now, at the IPC, we have an aspiration, and our aspiration is to make for a more inclusive society for people with a disability through sport. And that's the objective that we work to every single day. So going into London 2012, we did some research to find out where we were and where we needed to go to. And there was no awareness of who the athletes are. And if you think of the sports that you all enjoy, you watch those sports because you know the athletes. And the research that we did together with the organising committee, it showed that less than 1% of the British population could name a Paralympian. Of that 1% who could name a Paralympian, they could name an athlete who retired in 2004, they could name Oscar Pistorius, and they could name Ellie Simmons, who was a swimmer. So clearly, we had to do a job in raising awareness of the athletes. People didn't also see parasport as high-level sports. They thought it was just a nice group of disabled people who went on holiday every 4 years and got a bit of TV coverage. So we really had to change the positioning of parasport amongst the public. People did not have a clue who the International Paralympic Committee were. When I joined the website, bearing in mind it's such a big sporting event, only had 25,000 hits a month if we were lucky. And on social media, we had less than 30,000 followers, and there was no knowledge of the sports, and the Paralympic Games were just not seen as a leading sporting event. So we came up with an 18-month strategy, and when I joined the IPC, the boss said, you need to do this, but with no money. We have very few resources for you to call on, so you need to work with partners to deliver this campaign. So our first objective was to position the Paralympic Games as a high-performance sporting event, and I hope from the advert there you saw that the Paralympians are elite athletes. They train just as hard, if not harder, than their Olympic counterparts. So we also wanted to focus the communication on the athletes. We needed to raise awareness of who the athletes were. Now in London, we had 4,200 athletes taking part. Clearly, we couldn't promote every single athlete with 4 people. So what we said is, let's focus on a group of 45 athletes across the 20 sports and come up with an individual media campaign for each athlete. And because we had no budget, we said digital media is the way forward. You heard from one of the speakers yesterday. Twitter and Facebook is free. And we really needed to work through social media to get the awareness of the athletes up. We wanted to make rivalry key. I think we saw that with the fight of the century the other week with the boxing. You can really hype sport through rivalry and then deliver a very poor product at the end, because that fight was an absolute shocker when you consider the amount of build-up going into it. So we really made rivalry key. So of our ones to watch athletes, the 45, we ensured there were at least 2 athletes from each sport, and we positioned one as the champion and one as the contender who would like to beat that athlete. We wanted to innovate, and we wanted to work with our partners, our sponsors, and the broadcasters to innovate and get to our objective of positioning the Paralympic Games as a high-performance sporting event. So for each of our ones-to-watch athletes, the 45 of them, we created a special section on our website called the Ones to Watch. We created an athlete profile using the biography that had been provided to us from InfoStrada, and then we ensured that each of the ones-to-watch athletes was on social media. So we got them on Twitter and we got them on Facebook. Not only did they control their accounts, but so did the IPC, because we wanted to update their accounts if they were too busy. We also remotely did workshops with them, so gave them tips on how to best maximize their social media accounts. And the idea behind the Ones to Watch initiative was that the media, before the Paralympic Games, in between the Games, very few media cover Paralympic sport. So 3 weeks out from the Paralympic Games, when the media suddenly switch on to the Paralympic Games, they're like, so which athletes do we need to cover? The same with sponsors. Which athletes should we be using in our campaigns? We pointed them all to the Ones to Watch athletes in the lead up to the Games. So once we got the pages, we needed the stories of the athletes. Yesterday, you heard how storytelling is so important in innovation. And when you've got these 45 amazing athletes, every Paralympian is an amazing athlete, we said, let's tell the story of the athlete. And we didn't want to just position it as this is their backstory. This is an athlete who has lost their leg because of this accident. We wanted to tell people, first of all, how hard these athletes trained, to position them in the same way that an Olympian was going into London 2012. We then realized that if we had 45 athletes to write stories about, we didn't have enough staff with 4 people to do it. So how did we get around that? We recruited 45 student journalists around the world. If there's anyone here studying journalism, getting into the journalism industry is really, really difficult, and work experience is key. So what we said to students was, come and write for our website. We will give you a byline on the website, so you'll get something for your portfolio. And the best students, we would fly to London 2012 to cover the Paralympic Games. So we were getting the content for free, but the student was getting something for their portfolio. Every story that we did was obviously uploaded to our website, and then we shared it on the Facebook and the Twitter channels of the athlete that we controlled, which was really good. During the Games, what was really useful to us when we control these platforms is that we would log into the athlete's profile, and if we knew they were competing that day, we would say, hi guys, I'm competing in the 100-meter heats at 10:30 this morning. watch me live on Paralympic.org, and that got people back to our website. As soon as the race was finished, we would then clip that video, upload it to YouTube, and then share it again via their social media channels. So we kept getting all our assets back together via the website. We also then each morning when the press cuttings came in, we obviously uploaded some of the press cuttings saying, look at this coverage on my gold medal success yesterday. We'd obviously interviewed all the athletes because the tone of voice of each athlete profile needed to look authentic. So if we had an athlete who wasn't particularly clever, we would often put spelling mistakes into their profile to try out a bit of authenticity. One thing we did with one of our partners, Samsung, was the Samsung Bloggers Project, and we wanted to give an insight into what it's like being an athlete at a Paralympic Games. So for every once-to-watch athlete, we gave them the latest Samsung mobile phone. On the phone was an app, and the app enabled them to press the app, and then they could film something behind the scenes at the games. And once they'd finished it, it directly went to the back end of our YouTube channel. We then had a team who would monitor them, and if the content was good enough, they would approve it, and it would automatically go onto our website, and we'd then share it via their social media channels that we were controlling. We had 650 videos in 11 days uploaded by the athletes. And what was really good is that if you can imagine every single athlete, when they walked into the opening ceremony, they've got their phone out, and they are filming it. So by the time the opening ceremony at London 2012 had finished, we had 45 different viewpoints from an athlete on what it's like to walk out into an opening ceremony in front of 85,000 people. We then worked with broadcasters to share that content because obviously Channel 4 in the UK said, we'd love to see what it's like from an athlete viewpoint walking into the stadium because there's no broadcaster allowed to be embedded with the athletes. So that worked really, really well for us. This athlete here is a Spanish athlete called Teresa Perales, and she always said before the games that she wanted to share with her son her gold medal if she won one, because her son had never ever seen her compete. So this is in the athlete village. It was filmed by her husband, and this is the moment her son got hold of the gold medal for the first time, and she put it round her son's neck. It was a fantastic moment. There were no TV crews there because they're not allowed in the village during the games. And then we shared that content with Spanish TV. We were happy, the athlete was happy, but our Samsung sponsor were even happier because they were getting branding on TV that they weren't even paying for. We also did this with Atos. So everyone talks about split-screen technologies where you sit with your iPad whilst you watch the live sport. We put everything into one screen for the first time. This was a new product that Atos were developing, and they said they'd give it to us for a cheaper fee because they wanted to test it at a major sporting event. And what this did was combine live vision from sport with live data, which was being provided by the organizing committee. So you could control what data you wanted, and you could also select which country you supported, and it would flash up with a medal alert. So if you were watching the basketball and seeing the live data, and you were Mexican, the ticker tape at the bottom would say gold medal for Mexico. You clicked on the ticker tape, and it would take you through to the highlights of that athlete winning the medal. This was the first time this technology had been tried, and now it is the Olympic media player and was used by 50 broadcasters during Sochi 2014. So it's somewhere where we worked with one of our partners on an innovation and delivered something that's now become very, very popular indeed. So these are the results. We were really, really happy with these because it really did change a lot. So during 12 days of the games, we had 1.9 million people on our website. Bearing in mind, we used to get 25,000 people a month, and we had 1.9 million during 12 days. We were staggered when we got the figures. And the good thing is the numbers since then have remained. So it wasn't just people came to the site during the games, people are still coming back to the IPC website. We had 250,000 average live views of the closing ceremony. Why? Because we had Coldplay, Rihanna, and Jay-Z performing live at the closing ceremony. So from our point of view, when you've got one of the biggest concerts ever, being live streamed on your website, you are slightly twitchy that the website doesn't crash. So we really did have to work hard with our website supplier to ensure it worked. We had nearly 10 million videos from YouTube downloaded during the games because we had a team clipping every single race. Now, I must stress that we have a team of 4 going into the Paralympic Games. During games time, the team grows from 4 to 100 temporary staff. And you really do have to trust your staff there, because suddenly someone who's working at a coordinator level suddenly heads up a department working with temporary staff. So you've really got to hammer into your staff the roles and responsibilities of delivering such a big sporting event. There were 1.5 million Paralympic tweets during the games. That was a lot then. It doesn't seem a lot now, because we smashed that figure in Sochi for the Paralympic Winter Games last year. The one thing that we were most particularly proud of, though, was #Paralympics was the #1 trending sporting event in the UK. The Olympics came 3rd. The Premier League was 2nd. Bearing in mind the Premier League is played over 38 weeks, and we were over 12 days, to take that accolade was quite an achievement for us. Why did we get it? Why did we achieve the #1 trending sporting event in the UK? We worked with our sponsors, we worked with our athletes, and we worked with our broadcasters to ensure that everyone used the same hashtag. The Olympics, they phoned up and said, how have you done that? And we explained this model, and that what they'd done is they'd done #Olympic athletics, #Olympic swimming. They diluted the impact of their social media. We had 82.1 million Facebook views from 24 million users. Bearing in mind, before the games, we had less than 30,000. Quite an achievement for us. Johnny Peacock, one of the stars of the games, his Facebook following went up 3,200% in just 12 days, which was quite a fantastic achievement. And the Samsung bloggers, there were 300,000 views for that. This cost us very little to deliver. The best stats, though, we sold 2.8 million tickets. That now makes the Paralympic Games the 3rd biggest sporting event in the world. Only the Olympics and the FIFA World Cup sell more. And for Rio 2016, we are targeting 3.3 million ticket sales. If we achieve that, we will overtake FIFA, and we will become the 2nd biggest sporting event in the world. When you bear in mind that the first Paralympic Games was held in 1960 in Rome with just 400 athletes, that's quite an achievement in such a short space of time. We also had a cumulative TV audience of 3.8 billion people in over 100 countries watching the games. And already, we're 500 days probably away from Rio 2016. We have far more broadcasters signed up to cover the games, including NBC, who will show the Paralympic Games live in the US for the first time ever. So we are confident we will break 4 billion for Rio 2016. But remember the first slide, 1% of people in the UK before the Games could name a Paralympian. Post-Games, 31% could name at least 5 Paralympians. Those 5 Paralympians were all once-to-watch athletes. Why? Because the newspapers, the broadcasters, the sponsors had all focused on the same group of 45 athletes. And I'm delighted that all the athletes picked up huge sponsorship deals after the games. What I'm not delighted about is I didn't see a penny of it. This is 65% of people in the UK, they felt the Paralympics delivered a breakthrough of the way people with a disability are viewed. So we weren't just putting on a great sporting event, we were changing the way people think about people with a disability. Going back to the aspiration of the IPC, the aspiration is to make for a more inclusive society for people with a disability through sport. We were achieving this through Paralympic Games. 1 in 3 adults in the UK changed their attitudes towards disability because of the Paralympic Games. Now, the UK is around 60 million people. So 1 in 3 is 20 million people. This sporting event changed the attitudes forever of 20 million people. I don't think there is any other sporting event in the world that can deliver a legacy like this. And this isn't the first Games where we've delivered such a tangible change in society regarding people with a disability. But for us, this was the game changer. Channel 4, the Superhumans campaign, when they first broadcast the advert that you saw at the start, they used 85 channels in the UK, and consecutively, every channel played the advert. And I think in 60 seconds, it did more to change perceptions of people with a disability than what we'd done in the last 10 years. But the main thing to change perceptions is seeing the athletes compete. And to finish, I'll play you a video of the Superhumans in action at London 2012.
Having lived the life that you've lived since your accident, if you could control fate and erase the accident from your life, would you?
No. Pure and simple.
I was blind, now I can see. You better believe her, I done met. I was blind, now I can see. You better believe her, I done met. I'm moving all up now, getting out of the darkness.
I don't know if it'll ever sink in. I wasted 4 years of my life! Pistorius has been on the line! Richard Whitehead storming through.
This sport has found another genuine superstar.
Peacock takes the goals for Great Britain.
We have been graced by greatness tonight. Goal for Alison! New world record!
It was so tough, and I thought I'm going to do it for everyone who's supported me.
Every single person is on their feet. The noise is absolutely deafening.
Oscar Pistorius, the greatest Paralympic athlete of all time.
There are people in this stadium with tears in their eyes. Nobody will ever forget that they were here.
Have you ever seen anything like that? That was absolutely fantastic.